Okay, everyone, so let's start our Police Services Board open session meeting. It's 5:03 by my watch, and I'll call this meeting to order. Is there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? No? Okay, seeing none. Preliminary matters, Madam Secretary, is there anything there that we need to cover off?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion, board members, to approve the agenda?
I'll move, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Member Brown?
Second, sure.
All in favor?
Yes.
Great.
Mr. Chair, there's just in the interest of accuracy, there's just a typo in 6.2, community safety grant, not grand.
Yes. I thought we were giving away $1,000 there.
My apologies.
No way. Thank you for that, Member McSweeney. Okay. There is nothing to rise and report from our in-camera session, so we will just move on to the public session. And for those of you watching online, we are very fortunate tonight to have the chair of the Midland Police Services Board with us, Mr. George Dixon. Mr. Dixon, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being here.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Very good. So the purpose, everyone, of Mr. Dixon being here tonight is he has the distinction of having gone through a transition recently. So as we all know, the town of Midland moved to OPP services, and had to deal with how that transition went down and what the requirements would be of the new Police Services Board moving forward. And all of us have lots to learn, and I thought it would be good if, Mr. Dixon, if you could share a little bit about your experience and some things that maybe caught you off guard, or things that went well, some watch-outs for us, and then potentially board members might have some questions for you, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, well, sure. Maybe I'll start by just giving you a little bit of the history of the OPP bid for the town of Midland. Midland Council, I believe it was 2013, decided to request a bid for contract policing from the OPP, and that request was made of the OPP, and not long after the request was made, the OPP decided to embark on an examination of its billing formula for municipalities where it provides contract policing. And so the request by Midland Council kind of went into a fairly long hiatus period from sometime in 2014 till it was resurrected in 2016, and the OPP again began issuing proposals for municipal policing. I joined the Midland Police Services Board in immediately following the 2014 municipal election, and was appointed chairman of the board at our first meeting in 2015, and have remained in that capacity since then. So the die was cast before I joined the board. The town council had decided to request a proposal from the OPP, and renewed that proposal in 2016. I'm a retired municipal lawyer, and so that that's my background that I brought to the board when I was appointed.
You seem quite nice, Mr. Dixon, so we won't hold the lawyer piece against you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, yeah, people, you know, it's interesting, and there's some truth to this. I think the public generally has a very dim view of lawyers as a class. I think, except for their own lawyer, who most people tend to hold in fairly high regard. So, yeah.
Very true. So,
yeah.
How did you find the transition? So, our history and where we're at and where you could help us is well, 2.5 weeks from now, we move from our Orangeville Police Service to OPP. And is there things that you could provide for us as watchouts and?
Okay, so you're well along in the process. Then I take it.
Yes.
You have an OCPC approval to disband and to contract with the OPP, and your folks on the day of disbandment a lot of them will be heading off to the OPP college for some updating in terms of the OPP procedures.
That's correct, and we're just working through some HR issues, obviously, as we transition. But I guess what we're after from you is like from a governing perspective, and
okay, yeah, that's very helpful. So I mean to be perfectly frank, in a lot of ways, the OPP policing, the transition to having the board's responsibilities now come from Section 10 of the Act rather than Section 31, that relieves the board of a great deal of the responsibilities that used to occupy a lot of the board's time and attention, and that was sort of governing the employment relationship between the board and its sort of various employees. So I would say our board has found it quite refreshing to be relieved of those responsibilities. I don't know your situation, but we still have an unresolved arbitration with our former chief. Shortly after our disbandment, as luck would have it, our agreement with our uniform and civilian employees terminated on the 31st of December 2017. Our disbandment date was not until February 8th, 2018. So as a result of that, we had the Midland Police Association chose to go to arbitration in March 2018, and that was dealt with quite expeditiously. The senior officers were in a similar situation there, but their contract was settled quite shortly after the Midland Police Association. But our former chiefs, who has also pursuing a right to that he was given under Section 40 of the Act. That is still out there, and the COVID there have been a number of delays in that process, and COVID has certainly added to them. So the current arbitration date for our former chief is now mid-January 2021. So that's yet to be determined. I don't know your situation. Hopefully, or perhaps your contract with your chief provided for the eventuality of OPP policing, and that is dealt with.
So
otherwise,
our chief is on the line, Mr. Dixon, in this meeting. So he's
oh yes,
he's with us in this call. But I guess again, just to kind of ground us, is there learnings that you had when you went over to the new board? What were the big things that you found different in terms of, you mentioned the workload, but what would you be concentrating on with the OPP versus what do you concentrate on, versus the Midland Police Force?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say what the OPP policing enables our board to now do is to, I think, devote more time and attention to being a kind of liaison between the community, to representing the community with the policing agency. So, in my view, that's I think a more productive role for the board. If you examine the provisions of Section 10, the board's responsibilities under Section 10 versus the responsibilities under Section 31, there are a great number of similarities. So I would say the very good thing from I think the board's perspective is that we're able to concentrate on sort of the community policing issues without having to pay as much attention to the kind of nuts and bolts of labor relations and grievances and and the whole 9 yards there. So I would say our experience has been quite positive, all in all, and I don't know there's a great deal I could add to that.
Okay.
I think one thing that I know some board members had some questions about, but I think the answer's fairly clear. Some board members, some of our former board members, were under the impression that somehow OPP contract policing meant somehow there was a new board that, and of course that's really not so. The board continues to exist. In fact, you must have a board if you have a contract with the OPP. So the board continues its responsibilities, simply, mute or mutate somewhat.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
How often would your board meet?
We have been, so in the early days, we were meeting every couple months. with the OPP detachment commander through, I would say, the first year, just to sort of get familiar with each other and to sort of, understand any differences. Of late, we've been meeting quarterly. So basically every 3 months, with a special meeting if required. And I would say these quarterly meetings have been adequate. I don't know the situation in Orangeville and which other municipalities your local detachment may police, but our detachment polices Midland, Penetanguishene, Tiny Township, Tay Township, and parts of Georgian Bay Township, up into the district of Muskoka. So the detachment commander, if you're in our situation, if you're having monthly meetings, he or she is a pretty busy person just going to board meetings.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'll throw it out to board members. Board members, any questions of Mr. Dixon? Yes, Member Brown.
Mr. Dixon, you made an interesting comment just now about the various municipalities. So how many police service boards are there in the local area?
Well, certainly Penetanguishene has a board. Midland does. Tiny Township does, and I am not positive right now the status of Tay Township, nor Georgian Bay Township. There are still some Section 5 policing arrangements too, where there's not a contract,
Right.
Where the OPP simply provides service and bills the municipality accordingly.
Has there been some talk of consolidation of boards?
Yes, yeah, and in fact, I think the new act, which will govern us, which is not yet in force, will require detachment boards.
Right.
In the fullness of time, there I think are a lot of regulations that province needs to adopt, and of course, obviously, COVID has turned their more attention to other matters at present, I would say. So,
You mentioned Tiny Tay. What about Floss? What happened to Floss?
Oh, Floss is good question. I think Floss is policed by another detachment. We're the Southern Georgian Bay detachment, and I think Floss and Clearwater and maybe Wasaga Beach are policed by a detachment to our west.
Okay. The reason I brought that up, those watching, Tiny Tay and Floss are the names of the dogs of the government.
Lady Simcoe's. Yeah.
Lady Simcoe's dogs from the mid-1800s.
Yes, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
Mr.
Any other
Chair,
board members? Yes.
It's Ian
Member
McSweeney.
McSweeney.
I have a couple of questions. Afternoon, Mr. Dixon.
Hello.
I was wondering, your first, you referred to the confusion among some board members on whether or not going from section 31 to section 10 required the reconstitution of the board or the constitution of a new and separate board, and I agree that it doesn't. I'm just curious, is the transformation between 31 and 10 automatic, or was there some action taken by the board or by the town or by both?
Yeah, so I'm a retired lawyer.
Me too.
And gave up my ticket. So, but there was not any formality. It kind of one day the OPP became the policing agency, and our view was that the board and all the appointments to it carried on, and simply the obligations and responsibilities of the board changed on that day from what's set out in section 31 to section 10 and other relevant parts of the act. So short answer, no formal steps. I don't think anybody felt that any formality was required, and we've certainly carried on since then.
Right. And my second question, if I might, Mr. Chair, is with respect to the composition of meetings. I'm just curious whether Mr. Dixon had discovered that the composition of meetings as between in-camera sessions and public sessions changed very much going from section 31 to section 10. I suspect it did.
Yes, I would say absolutely, because the only closed sessions we have these days tend to relate to the outstanding arbitration by our former chief under section 40 of the act. It was part of the disbandment order that the OCPC made, granting him the right to take any dispute to arbitration. So going purely by memory, I can't think of any other reason other than these kind of remnant outstanding matters from our former responsibility. I can't think of any other reason we've been in camera since disbandment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So sounds like we're going to have a bit of free time on our hands moving forward.
I would say, I would say it depends on the, on the sort of local issues, regarding policing. Midland, Midland is kind of the urban core for our immediate area. The big box stores tend to be there. Of course, there's a mental health center and the super jail, sort of immediately adjacent to Midland and Penetanguishene. So Midland has, its share of, homelessness, probably more than its share homelessness and, mental illness and addiction issues. So there are some, despite Midland being a pretty small town, 17,000 people, we do have some of those issues, and that's been a focus for the board and for our sort of local detachment commander.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Ken or Mary, did you have any comments? You're good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Ian, Sandy, are we okay?
Yeah, no, it's very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon, for joining us. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you're very welcome. In a lot of ways, it sounds like a lot of the real scrambling part is probably behind you now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's been a journey for everyone that's on this call for a variety of reasons.
I'm aware that those issues can be pretty divisive in a community.
Yeah, it's very true. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Dixon. You're certainly welcome to stay on and listen to us natter on, and or if not, we wish you a wonderful evening.
Okay, well, I think I will sign off, but thank you for the invitation, and you're very welcome.
Okay, take care. Enjoy your evening.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye now.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
That was very good. Mr. Dixon doesn't realize that we are a riveting bunch and would be very entertaining for him as we spend the next hour or so together, but I digress. Okay, so 6.2 is the community grant portion. It's due October 7th is my math. I don't think there's anything for us to do other than to receive it, unless, Chief, you have some things that you'd like to offer commentary on that documentation. Oh, you're on mute, sir. Yeah, thank you.
How's that?
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. 6.2 is actually captured in a board report at 14.5. Should we bring that forward if you'd like? Or should we wait till we get to that part?
I see. Yeah, why don't we wait? Yeah, thank you, Chief. Okay, so page 24 is item 6.3, and it's the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. And my understanding is that we have a guest speaker here, and is Mary Lou Archer speaking?
I have Sergeant Archer here, but
sorry, Sergeant Archer.
6.3 is actually captured in a board report at 14.3. And if we could defer to that or bring it forward as you wish.
And thank you, Chief. We seem to have some duplication here. Is Sergeant Archer speaking on 14.3?
She will be speaking on 14.3, yes.
Okay, great. No, so let's continue on then. So we are now on to, actually this works out well. Andrew McKinney has joined us from the town, and we are on to the OPS records retention portion. I did have a meeting sidebar today with Ms. McKinney, and we did talk about some of the items that would have to be changed just based on some things that the town had as they read through the document, just some concerns. I did forward those to Ian for his perusal. They came across this afternoon, so fellow board members, I haven't shared those changes with you, but I'm just curious, Andrea, did you want to talk to those changes? What do you think would be best as we have this discussion?
We certainly, through the chair, I'm certainly prepared to do that. So Again, I just want to reiterate that the town appreciates what we're trying to achieve and is look forward to supporting the board in the transition. And we have reviewed the document internally and have some very minor comments that were provided by the clerk, but we're in consensus with the CAO and myself. So as an example, for item number 3, what we believe we talked about in spirit previously was that certainly the town would be a facilitator of access to records, but not a gatekeeper per se. But that being said, we would like to be providing access to those records via board resolution, and certainly the chair and the vice chair can action those resolutions, but we didn't want them to be acting unilaterally without support of the board or in absence of the board's awareness. So that was one of the requests. Maybe we can go through them one at a time.
So in that instance, that's where it speaks to in written communication signed by the chair and the vice chair of the board, instead of or, it would say and.
Through the chair, that would be our suggestion.
Yeah, so board members, I've had a little bit more time, and again, the meeting happened at lunchtime today, so apologize that you haven't been able to see what the town's feedback was, but I think that makes sense. We don't want the chair and the vice chair of the board to be able to do things without the board, giving permission to do so or being aligned to do so. They shouldn't be able to act unilaterally on their own. So I personally don't see an issue with that whatsoever. How does the rest of the board feel?
So, Mr. Chair, Ian, I wonder if I might be more efficient if I just said a few things, because I think I would describe this as a completed discussion as far as the town goes. It's just a bit of a drafting exercise. And just for the benefit of the public, what we're talking about here is a resolution to be passed by the board with respect to records retention and transfer authority. And part of that resolution is the board passing a resolution appointing the town as under the applicable legislation, appointing the town as the archive agent of the board with respect to these records. So that's the context. The resolution speaks to that, and attached to the resolution there is a schedule or an appendix that has an agreement, a very short agreement between the town and the board that is designed to achieve that result, and also to deal with a couple of issues with respect to the transfer, how the transfer authority to the OPP, what happens to documents when the OPP decides it doesn't want to keep and they're retransferred back to the town, that kind of thing. So I just think, Mr. Chair, apologize, but I think it's important just to provide those listening with that context. So the town's comments were on Schedule A, which is the agreement itself. And there were 3 comments, and I think we're pretty much aligned in all respects with respect to all 3 comments. But I'd like to take them in reverse, if I might, Andrea. Just follow.
Why do you have to be difficult?
Well, just because it's easier that way, and because I'm a lawyer.
Let's do that. I feel the same way. I think we're awfully close here.
Yeah. No, it's very good. So Andrea was talking about point 3. So we're talking about the second page of the agreement, and at the town identified, I think, quite legitimately, the desire to have the person directing it with respect to any request for records being the chair, or the vice chair, but supported in all cases by evidence of a decision of the board. And of course, that's how the board speaks. It doesn't speak to the chair or the vice chair without a board resolution or authority. So I think if you're Andrea, if you're just looking at that section there, the second last line is by the chair and vice chair of the board. I think we would take out the words, I've crossed them out so I can't even read them. We would take out the 3 words before certified and add and accompanied by. So it would be communication signed by the chair and vice chair of the board and accompanied by a certified copy of an approved board resolutions. I think that does it. The second point, which needs some drafting, but I'll explain the concept to the board so that we can go ahead and hopefully approve it, subject to the wordsmithing, which I'm quite confident that the town and I can do. The second point, I think, Andrea, was that there should be some sort of specific provision authorizing the town to process freedom of information requests, perhaps on the board's behalf, but subject to the board direction, as once again evidenced by a certified approved board resolution. So have I interpreted that comment box correctly, that that's what you're looking for?
Through the chair, yes, you have.
Great. And I apologize, am I still sounding like I'm underwater?
Literally or figuratively?
No, you're good.
No.
All right.
No,
So,
it's good. Thank you.
The final point is there was a comment in relation to the recitals. And I got to say that the legislation that we're dealing with here is the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act and the Municipal Act itself. So the Municipal Act has a bunch of provisions in it which I don't think are well understood and I don't think are particularly well drafted. And so if you look at the existing board bylaw, and Ken, you may recall that you probably had this discussion with the lawyer at the time that was assisting in the drafting of that bylaw, the interpretation as to what a record is that was clearly made for purposes of our existing bylaw is that records include records that all records, including records that relate to any law enforcement activity with respect to a person or a body. Those are the words used in the legislation, because there's a carve out in that legislation. I think, Andrea, the town has interpreted it more narrowly to say that that carve out excludes and creates a second set of records. The board in its bylaw interprets it that carve out applies to the municipality and not the board, and it solidifies the fact that the board actually has authority over all of its records, not just a subset. So for purposes of the agreement, what I'm proposing is that we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth recital in the agreement, we will just take out the words after records are destroyed, take out the words including with respect to records that are blah, 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 blah. So we'll just end it after the word destroyed. And we'll leave for another day anyone's interpretation about whether that carve out applies widely or narrowly, because I don't think we need to get to the bottom of that rabbit hole at this point. But I know how I would come out on it, and I know how the board previously came out on it. And I don't think for purposes of this agreement, we need to get into that. So I will make that change. And then I think with that change, subject to the way that I draft what will be new section 4, I think we're done. So if the board wants to, subject to any discussion and anything else you want to say, Andrea, what I would propose is that we craft a motion to pass the resolution with the revised Schedule A, the wording to be finalized by the vice chair and the town, and then we're done. And then we can create the agreement in final form. And if the board wants it back to look at one more time, I'm fine with that as well. But otherwise, we can just execute it.
I think that's, I'll speak for myself first and then throw it out. I think that's absolutely fine. Just Ian, as you know, and I appreciate your comments, the information given to us was done by Ms. Landry with Ms. McKinney. Like I feel pretty comfortable with what it is. Like I can't imagine we'd be veering much further off with what Ms. Landry offered. Is it? And I think that's what you're saying. Right.
I'm just trying to avoid, yeah, and I see it was Ms. Landry that made that comment. The only controversial point is the interpretation of 255 sub 6 of the Municipal Act, and I, for one, don't want to engage with the town on that, and I don't think the town really. I mean, there's nowhere to go on it that's helpful. I think we'll just, and I think Ms. Landry actually made the suggestion. Just delete the words in question, so that if an interpretation ever comes up, we'll deal with it if it comes up. Otherwise, I'm satisfied that both our resolution and the revised agreement give us what we need.
Okay, so my urgency on this, board members, is to me, we need to pass this and move forward and allow the town to start to work through these things and have it done. And it feels like we would have an agreement in principle with slight wording, and it would just come back to the board again for receiving, because the document you have in front of you, it's not changing greatly. Would that be fair?
That would be fair.
Okay, so as a board member, I was going to say as chair, as a board member, I still put forward that we approve this today. That would be mine, and I know I'm not going to make the motion. Hopefully someone else on the board will, but that's what I think we should do. Okay, Member Rose has made the motion to do so. Would we have a seconder of? Okay, great. Member Brown, thank you very much, sir. All in favor of approving this under the conditions that we've laid out?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And Andrea, thank you so much for staying late with us. I'm sorry it's approaching your dinner hour, but we certainly appreciate your help and expertise, and I hope you enjoy your evening. Again, you're welcome to stay too. I know Mr. Dixon wanted to, but I'm sure you would rather go home.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Okay, good night. Okay, so that's great. So that's item 6.5. We're now moving on to item 6.6. This speaks to body-worn cameras. Chief, I hope you're not going to tell me we've got it later on the agenda as well.
No, we do not.
No. Excellent progress. To me, the way I read this is that we were to get back to them by a certain date. Police services were to do that, and just say whether or not we were using body cameras. Our force is not using body cameras, so I assume that work was done, Chief, and it was just a no, and off we go, and the board would receive this document.
Correct.
Okay. Would anybody have any questions before we move forward, or would I have a motion to receive?
Motion to receive.
Thank you. Member Rose, Member Brown. I'm sorry, Ken, did you have a question?
I was going to second it, but Sandy beat me.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so that moves us on to item 7, which is to pass any motions in closed session. We didn't have any. And that puts us on to item 8. And Ian, are we in a position to move forward with item 8.1 this evening?
So 8.1 just needs to be changed. It's August 18th, not August 25th.
Okay.
And I think that Carrie circulated my revisions to both the public session and the in-camera session.
Yes, I did.
Minutes.
Yeah, that was the meeting, August meeting, the regular meeting.
Yeah, so I think board members have before them the revised version that went out earlier this afternoon. And I've looked at that, and it incorporates my comments, both of them.
Okay. Fellow board members, any comments on August 18th PSB meeting minutes?
I can't comment because I wasn't there. So.
It's never stopped you, Ken?
No, I wasn't there, so I can't comment.
Okay. So a motion to receive this.
To receive and approve these.
Yeah.
Minutes.
Thank you, Member Brown. Well, I'll second it then. So seconded by myself. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that puts us on to the budget. The budget was sent out this morning in terms of the updated amounts. My apologies to fellow board members. This was requested. I think our team at at the town has just been inundated with other items, so I apologize that it came out late today. But we do have it here now. Is there any commentary on the financials? Or if there isn't, then I'd like a motion to receive.
So be it. Motion to receive?
Member Brown?
Could I say a word? Yes.
Yes, please, Member Rose.
I could be wrong with my numbers and what have you, but it looks as if up to this point, this has been managed very, very well by the chief and staff, and it would appear that we're about 10% below budget. Now, my numbers could be wrong, but if maybe the chief knows the answer to that.
Thank you, Member Rose. Based on the August 31st budget document, we are under budget by about $268,000, which represents 4.9% of the budget. However, I ran the current budget document for the ending of September 30th, and I ran that yesterday at 1:01 p.m. and it shows that based on September 30th numbers, that we're about $681,000 under budget, or 10.8%. So I guess that's something that you need to have clarified through finance. But either way, we're in good shape, and we're trending in a positive manner, as I would expect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, board members? No? Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. I'm looking for a seconder to receive. Member Brown has moved. Member Craker, thank you very much. All in favor of receiving this document?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. So now we're on to the remuneration claim form submissions from PSB members. Any questions on this? Seeing none, could I have a motion to receive these documents?
Mr. Chair, just before we do, just wanted just a point of clarification. So members might want to think about when they would like to receive the periodic report that is being kept by the board secretary, which keeps a running total of, in a number of different columns, of these claims as they accumulate throughout the year. I know that we'd originally set it up as a semi-annual report, but we changed that to be, periodic. The board can call for it at any time, and so we might want to, think about doing that. Perhaps set it on the agenda for our next regular meeting, just so that we can actually have a look and see the cumulative effect of our special remuneration policy. And the other thing I just mentioned is that I think as a standard item in the minutes that we're keeping of these meetings where we approve these claims, I've asked the board secretary to set out in more detail when she's preparing the minutes, the claims, the amounts, the names, the dates. And right. So just as she did in the August 18 meeting minutes, when you have a chance to look at those if you haven't already, so that when we post these minutes publicly, the public will be able to see what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Agreed. Okay, did we get?
I would make the motion to receive and approve this report on special meetings, and also to make that amendment and direction to the secretary to put the recap into the minutes, so it's easy to see for the public.
Wonderful. And what about the quarterly report? Sorry, Sandy, what about the report in October, like Ian was mentioning?
Yeah, this quarterly would be fine, in my opinion. I don't know what the other members think, but quarterly would be good.
Sounds fine.
I would second Sandy's motion.
We could call for it any time, recognizing that if we want to have it at a particular meeting for a particular reason, it's easy enough just to circulate.
Yeah. These the importance of this, I mean, it's there for sure, but it's going to diminish as we transition, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been high for a variety of reasons over the past 3 or 4 months. Okay, very good. Did we pass it? I don't think I did, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. So that's item 9.2, which brings us on to question period. And who's running the show here today? I feel like it's Mona. Is it? Are we too early, Mona or Dan? What do we do now? Should we go on to something else, or 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah, we're a little bit too early. We're currently at 5:51, so we are still a little bit too early from our usual question period time.
Okay. Why don't I see if I can, we'll see if we can get a little bit further on here, and we'll cycle back to question period then at 6 o'clock. So that brings us on to number 11, which is presentations. We have none. Delegations, number 12, we have none. Correspondence, I'm not aware of any, but I'll just double check. Madam Secretary, are we?
No, Mr. Chair.
No,
There's
thank
nothing.
you very much. Okay, so why don't we move on to 14.1 here, and to Chief Kalinsky for your presentation, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. 14.1 is a resignation of a part-time communicator that started with us on May 9th, 2018. She has resigned effective August 20th this year, and to take up a position as a full-time constable with the Ontario Provincial Police. So I just want to congratulate her on her accomplishment.
Very good. It's excellent. Okay. I think we just, as a point, I don't need a motion to receive 14.1, do we? We would just.
I believe we do.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay. Would we do it at the end of the reports, I think? Why don't we do that?
That's what we've done in the past, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll wait till the end. So 14.2 then, Chief Kalinsky.
Thank you. This is an internal operational plan that we have put together and developed as a result of the disbandment of the Orangeville Police. If I could ask the board to refer to page 6, 7, 8, and 9. So every member of the organization will be transferring through their 4 check areas to return their equipment. Everything will be checked off that has been received. If for whatever reason a staff member is not returning a particular item on those lists, they'll be highlighted, and at the end a memo will come to the Police Services Board indicating what hasn't been returned, and for the board's discretion as to how they want to handle it.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. So that puts us on to item 14.3.
Mr. Chair, can I ask one question, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Certainly, Member Rose.
I didn't know if there was any, somewhere embedded in there, anything that happens with medical supplies that you've got currently, like naloxone and things like that. Are they considered the property of OPP now, or?
No, they will be considered the property of the town of Orangeville, property of the board through to the town of Orangeville.
Okay. Thank you. I just didn't see it there.
We will attach a list to that report of an inventory throughout the building. There's a photograph of the item being inventoried, barcoded, and it'll form part of the report at the end of the day. So my desk has a barcode, my credenza has a barcode, chairs, everything will be barcoded so we can turn over a nice tidy package indicating what the inventory is for the Orangeville Police.
Yes, Member Brown, did you have another question?
A couple of questions. We had an interesting discussion over a uniform item earlier this year, and I see on page 7, Chief Kalinsky, a list of items for members to turn in. So they're to turn in their complete uniform. And what about, we had a discussion earlier tonight about badges and potential encasement in badges. And when do the officers actually turn their OPS badge? Is it once they've received their OPP or on October 1st?
October 1st by 12 noon, everybody will have turned in their equipment. That equipment will be categorized by us. And if an article of equipment isn't turned in, that notification will go to the board. I've had some discussions with Andrew McKinney asking for a tunic uniform. I have volunteered to present mine, and I'm awaiting direction as to how she would like to accept that. But everything will be turned in by noon on October 1st.
So the period from October 1st to the completion of the experienced officer training program, are the officers in sort of Never Land, or they're without a badge then, or are they issued an OPP badge on October 1st?
October 1st at 12 noon, they cease to be Orangeville police officers. The town is then taken over by the Ontario Provincial Police, and I can't comment as to when they will be getting their equipment. They're still waiting instructions as to arrival and where they have to go, so we're anticipating that coming. But they will not be Orangeville police officers as of 12 noon on the 1st.
All right, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Member Rose, did you have a follow-up question?
Just wondering about the dress uniform, whether they were allowed to keep those.
Not according to the procedures.
What a shame.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Are we moving on to the highlight of the program and Sergeant Archer with 14.3?
I have Sergeant Archer and Staff Sergeant Dave McLagan here.
Excellent.
Sergeant Archer is going to be talking about the first responders COVID-19 portal. Sergeant Archer.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Archer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this matter. I just want to start by providing a brief overview on it. So back on April 15th, the provincial government introduced this portal with all good intents to make it safer for our frontline responders and to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Very early in using this portal, we found that it wasn't as helpful, and for a number of reasons that I cited in the report. The information wasn't current. Often if persons were put on the portal, they were never taken off. If we were dealing with someone at a location, there could be inconsistencies on the portal as to different units at a particular address. And often at an occurrence, you have persons from other addresses attending that particular occurrence. So we couldn't rely on it solely. And the provincial government, when they introduced this on April 15th, they provided very clear direction so to protect people's personal health information. And with that, we immediately sent out a directive to our employees to safeguard persons' personal health information. And I can say that in order to follow up to the correspondence that you received, I reached out to the ministry to find out exactly the details of the 48 times that the portal was used. And what we found out was that the over half those uses were in the first week when we were trying to set up our users and setting up their usernames and their passwords. And then subsequent to that, it was used a few more times. But the use of it became redundant very quickly because we felt that our first responders needed to do that point of contact screening because they couldn't rely solely on the portal. And then to respond to the concerns about personal health information from the portal being retained in our records management system, as a result of reaching out to my colleague at the ministry, I was able to get specifics on date and time of usage, and Staff Sergeant McLaughlin reviewed and audited that usage, and we can confidently tell you that there was no personal health information from the portal rolled over into our records management system. So you can be confident of that.
Good.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Sergeant Archer? Member Brown?
Does this require a response from either OPS or from the chair to the party that was questioning this, civil liberties?
Sergeant Archer, does it?
I would think that a response perhaps from the board to that group advising that there was no personal health information rolled over into our records management system would be appropriate.
Okay. I would like to make that motion then for Chair Taylor to respond with Sergeant Archer's report and Sergeant McLagan's report.
Okay. Could I have a motion or a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it.
Yeah. Member McSweeney. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sergeant Archer, and it's nice to know that the staff sergeant is in the room. I can't see him, but
we're social distancing.
Yes, I guess we're visually distancing as well because we can't see him. But anyway, I hope you're well. Okay, 14.4, Chief Klinsky, comments from the public. Some nice letters.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than the fact that we've received 4 comments from the public for our officers, I have no further comments other than good work from our staff.
Very good.
Yeah. It was enjoyable to read them, and it just gives you a reassurance. So thank you to your staff, Chief.
Thank you. Pass out.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to miss these next month.
Okay, so Chief, 14.5, Community Safety and Policing Grant.
Thank you. I'd like to turn this over as well to our architect in this, Sergeant Mary Lou Archer will be talking about it. Thank you.
Okay.
So the Community Safety and Policing Grant is an important grant for municipalities to receive funding. As you recall, we received $360,000 last year as a result of the Community Safety and Policing Grant, and that was the local streams. And now, just at the end of August, the ministry did a call for application for the same grant, Community Safety and Policing, but it was the provincial stream. And so I reached out to the ministry and I asked, can we apply for this grant even though we'll be disbanded October 1st? And they replied yes, because the board is the recipient and the board will remain intact following the disbandment. So with that information, I quickly went to work, and they outlined specific priorities that you can apply for: guns and gangs, sexual violence and harassment, and human trafficking. So in working with our community partner, Calvin Veteran Victim Services, we were able quickly to establish a need for the grant money in relation to human trafficking. In the period of 2018 to 2019, they had 14 females and 1 male that were victims of human trafficking. And of those 14 females, 17 of them were under the age of 18. That resulted in 41 client experiences related to human trafficking, 139 follow-ups, and 197 times safety concerns were addressed. So it wasn't hard to establish a demonstrated need for funding in relation to human trafficking in our community. So it was difficult to make application for this grant with the disbandment because I couldn't set specific training objectives, performance objectives, and performance measures without involving the OPP. So I worked closely with Acting Staff Sergeant Kevin Convey, and we successfully put this grant together, grant application. And I'm happy to say that we've finished the draft, and I received feedback today from Detachment Commander Rando. They are happy with it because the grant requires interim reporting, so in 6 months, and then again at the end of the year, and it's a 2-year grant cycle. So we have put in a grant request. The first year, it's approximately 62,000, and then 56,000 the following year for an approximate amount of 120,000. Yeah, and the OPP detachment commander advised today that she's happy with this grant application. And so now really all it requires is the signature from our board chair, and we can submit it. There is a deadline of October 7th that it needs to be submitted. So it's ready to go. I can forward it off to you, Chair, anytime.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Sergeant Archer. Any questions for Sergeant Archer on this?
Good work.
Yes, good work.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so that brings us to the end of reports then. Thank you so much, Sergeant Archer. Can I have a motion to receive all of the reports, please? 14.1 through 14.5.
Chair, if I could just jump in for 1 second.
Yes.
There was a report submitted late, and it's the Analog Radios for Donation report.
Okay.
And what I'm asking.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
What I'm asking for is we have 4 portable radios that were decommissioned by the Orangeville Police in 2015. They were decommissioned because they no longer were able to talk to our new communication system. So they're junk. As a result, we were going to just leave them at the end of the day for the board. But I've been asked by the Brantford Police Service if the board would consider a donation of these 4 portable radios, which do not have a value to the Orangeville Police. That radio system is no longer valid, and they wanted to use them for their neighborhood volunteer program. So I'm coming to the board asking for the 4 radios to be donated to the Brantford Police Service because they are no longer operable within our system. Dave, do you have any comments that you want to add to that?
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question as well, but I'll defer to you. Member Brown, you go ahead, please.
No, I was going to accept the chief's recommendation. I'll make a motion.
Well, then a quick question. A quick question to the chief and to my fellow board members. It's starting to become apparent to me that a piece of history is leaving us, and lots of times things get swept up in that and they're not deemed as important, and then years later you wish you had them. I'm not suggesting that we would keep all 4 radios, but I'm wondering at some point if the Duffer Museum was going to have some sort of semblance of, an officer's hat, a jersey. This is an important organization, and I don't know if the radios are the right thing, but I wonder if one radio might be the right thing, and or a uniform. Perhaps I'm off base on this item, Chief, but I'm just trying to think of some things that we should be keeping for historical purposes. Is this one of them or no?
sounds good.
Member Brown, you had a comment?
I do agree that there is a historical need here, but if the Brantford Police Service has a real need for their neighborhood patrols to use these, it sounds like a good donation for us. I know Chief Kalinsky and others in the police force have tried to get a neighborhood patrol going in Orangeville. I remember sitting in on some meetings a couple of years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, and there just wasn't an uptake. You know, there a lot of people suggesting, but when it came down to showing up for meetings and committing, that we didn't get too much locally. So I don't think there's a use locally for those radios unless something changes immediately. It seems like a good use for those radios. But you know, the things like the sign, Chair Taylor, and there's certainly other things that will be able to be used and put into some sort of display, perhaps, you know, in Dufferin County.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm fine with it. If it was the wrong item, then that's fine with me. And any other board members have comments on that? No? Okay, hearing none. I think Member Brown, you were going to make a motion to approve what...
Yeah, I think it's a great use. I think if the Brantford Police Force has got a neighborhood patrol, it's an awesome way to move ahead and help them. Okay. I would make that recommendation, yeah.
Would we have a seconder to...
I will second it, Ken.
The home of Wayne Gretzky? Okay. Board members, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. Chief, I'm sorry, I don't want to, did we get through everything? Was that the, that was a late item, I know, so.
That was it.
Okay. This is our last board meeting with you, sir.
Yes, it is.
I'd just like to publicly thank you and let you know how much I admire you and B, enjoyed working with you, sir. You're
here. I also agree, Chief. Thank you for you and the men and women keeping the citizens safe. Thank you for your leadership over the years.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, are you going to circle back to question period? I just didn't want to lose it. Or is nobody?
I absolutely am. I had sent some messages through to our technology experts. I didn't get anything back saying that we had people on the line. Dan, did you see my notes come across?
I did, and through the chair, there is still currently nobody's on the line other than the board.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Okay, so that puts us through there from the new business standpoint. Any new business, board members? No, hearing none, we would be at adjournment. And before we adjourn, we'll just have to agree, we're going to go back into closed. I guess we're going to have to, I'll create something in Teams and invite each of you to a meeting. If you just give me a minute or two after we hang up, I'll have that out and sent to each of you, and we'll just get back on the line. Okay. Mona, thank you very much for your help. Dan, thank you for your help. And good night to everyone that's on the line, and board members, I'll see you in a few minutes.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief.
I know.